This show is presented by the 323 Network. You can watch all your favorite 323 friends and shows on the 323 Network YouTube channel, follow us on all social media platforms at 323Reid, and support us as we continue to grow at patreon.com/323Reid. That's 323REID. All right,
Oh, he's thinking of a Stanley.
do you have a Stanley?
No.
Oh, okay.
It's a Hydro Flask.
That's
It's
cool.
a Hydro Flask. I did not want to be a cliche. But I did like the shape of the cup. It fits in my cup holder very nicely.
Here we go.
I'm so behind on all the Stanley stuff. Everything I just caught up on, that whole trend.
It's so stupid.
They're
it's so
$50.
fucking stupid. It's a cup. It's a fucking cup. It's just like all these Swifties out here. It's the same fucking crowd though. The same crowd that are going batshit crazy over all this fucking Stanley Cups in Target are the same ones who are going crazy for Taylor Swift. It's the same fucking crowd. It's all these late to mid 20-year-old females to 40 who have expendable income and they don't have any kind of other hobbies, so they just leech onto this or leech onto the crowd. What's next?
Have you seen that report of how much they made before they started appealing to these influencers?
Oh
no.
God.
So basically it was they were somewhere, I can't remember the numbers, but it was 70 something million that they were making a year. And then this influencer was talking about how convenient it was and this and that. So instead of just riding the high of the sales going up, they intentionally started targeting that audience with the colors and just hitting whatever that demographic was asking for, and that's what shot that up into triple digits in the millions. So it's really smart business part on their end. But yes, this is a Hydro Flask because I did not want to be one of the Stanley people.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 323. I am your host, Reid Murphy. Thank you, everybody, for watching, listening, whatever you do to support this show and be around us. We always appreciate it. As always, if you're on the 323 Network YouTube channel, go ahead and subscribe, do that whole thing that John McCann yells at you about on his YouTube page. Oh, we are back, and it is a sort of hangover show. We're recording on a Tuesday, so it could be a Tuesday hangover, but you can't go too much hangover. We're done with the NFL regular season. We're done with the whole college football season. National championship just happened, so we have a pretty loaded show to get to, and we're gonna not really go at too much of a breakneck pace, but we're gonna try and speed through because here in Virginia, we are getting a biblical weather storm coming through. I think it's a nor'eastern, but I'm not used to this heavy of rain in the middle of January. So we're going to try to avoid power outages and get you as much show as we can. Get a little college shame day here on the second half of it. But because we have college shame day, you know who that means is here. The one and only host of it, Scott Ellia. Hi, Scott.
Hello, Reid.
Oh, I'm glad to see you're not in the dark.
It's probably going to happen at some point. I'm just thankful it's not snow. If it was just 10 degrees colder, it would be a perpetual blizzard out there, and I would be very upset.
That's right. And also here tonight, we love him. You love him. He is the one, the only, the curry puff himself. Zuhair Ali is here, host of Animation Deliberation, a podcast you can get wherever podcasts are, but he's also a business owner. Zoo, tell the people where we can find you.
Yeah, check out Upright Exposures on Instagram or uprightexposures.com. Providing top-tier real estate media services for all tier listings. So if you have a listing in the Hampton Roads area and are tired of using your cell phone for pictures, then just give me a holler and I'll take care of it.
Holler at your boy. Congrats, Zoo. Let's go.
Thanks, man.
We love it. We love it. All right, boys. So let's get into this NFL talk, all right? We got the whole regular season is done. Black Monday happened. I love it that we're all just rubbing our hands together. We're going to start a fire with all this dry skin. Listen.
I use Dr. Squash. Thank you very much.
It's eczema. Leave me alone.
Bunch of firings have already happened in the NFL. We had a surprise one actually today on Tuesday. By the time this airs, who knows when it'll happen. It's not a surprise to Scott. Scott says not a surprise. Well, let's update all of them here. First off, of the job openings that are available now, the Carolina Panthers, they were the first one. Head coach Frank Reich was fired mid-season. Their GM, Scott Fitterer, was also fired this past Monday, right after the regular season concluded. Las Vegas Raiders, they had already fired Josh McDaniels, and the LA Chargers, they had already fired Brandon Staley in their seasons. Vegas currently has Antonio Pierce as the head coach. Their GM was also fired at the time. Chargers, their GM was also fired at the time, Tom Telesco. Their current interim coach, I think, is named Giff Smith. It's the perfect, like, EA, create a coach that you just need in the meantime while you, just lose a couple games. Meanwhile, Monday, at the stroke of midnight, just so you could get in there on Black Monday, Arthur Smith, Atlanta Falcons head coach, was fired. Oof, what an ending for him. What an ending. He ended his career trying to cuss out Saints head coach Dennis Allen over a whole situation. We're gonna get into everything that happened there. But along with Arthur Smith, the long-awaited firing we all knew was actually going to happen, but it was a very classy firing, and I really was happy and respecting of that. That was Ron Rivera of the Washington Commanders. He was let go on Monday morning. The GM, Martin Mayhew, and the other whatever he is, Marty Herney, they're expected to be fired in the coming days as owner Josh Harris is looking for what is called a, quote, head of football operations. Almost kind of a basketball term that he will be, creating here. Brought in Bob Myers, the championship two-time executive of the year from the NBA, Golden State Warriors. Whoa, tripped up on that word. He is coming into the NFL and the Washington Commanders to help them find the next head coach and that head of football operations. Meanwhile, not a head coach, but the New York Giants, they lost their defensive coordinator, Wink Martindale. He offered to resign. Did not get along over there with the head coach. So that's an opening. But on Tuesday, a surprise to me, not a surprise to Scott, Mike Vrabel of the Tennessee Titans was fired. And it was a weird move where a lot of people thought he could be traded away. He could, maybe get some assets in return for him. A lot of teams are going to be looking at him as a head coach. Titans, they just said they didn't have the time to go through the trade process on Mike Vrabel. They didn't care. They didn't need to go through that. They wanted to get to, other young candidates at the moment. So Mike Vrabel is open. Other jobs that could possibly open up that we've heard about, Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots. Bill Belichick and Robert Kraft, the owner, they're expected to have a meeting sometime over this beginning of the week and figure out what Bill's future is going to be with the team. Will he give up power to stay there? Will they go after Mike Vrabel now and bring him in there as their head coach since he's so Patriots culture? The Seattle Seahawks, Pete Carroll, he announced he is coming back for another season next year, so those retirement rumors go away. Mike Tomlin, then the Pittsburgh Steelers, not expected to get fired. Of course, had another winning season, made it into the playoffs, but Adam Schefter reports that, in fact, Tomlin might take time off himself. He doesn't know yet. They don't know. He might just go ahead and take a year off, kind of like Sean Payton did when he left the Saints. So who knows what happens there. That's something to follow. And, of course, the Dallas Cowboys won the NFC East, made it into the number 2 seed in the playoffs. So how does Jerry Jones respond when talking about Mike McCarthy's performance for the year? We're going to watch him week by week. So pretty much, you lose here in the wild card weekend, you're fired, Mike. So going back to Arthur Smith real quick, I want to talk to you guys just about that whole situation. And I have thoughts, when it comes to running up the score. And that was the whole situation. The Saints were already up against the Falcons 41-17. And in victory formation, Jamal Williams, their running back, somebody that we've been a fan of, he's a big anime fan, had not gotten a touchdown all season. Saints players apparently decided to go ahead and get him a touchdown right there in the final seconds of the game in victory formation. For those that don't know victory formation, it's just when the quarterback and the team, they come up, get all huddled up, and they just take a knee just to run out the clock and end the game respectfully. Saints decided with their backup quarterback, famous Jameis Winston, that's Scott's boy, they decided to run that in, knock up the score to 48-17. Arthur Smith ended his Falcons tenure by cussing out Dennis Allen, the head coach of the Saints. Jameis Winston, though, and this is what I wanted to play for you all. Jameis Winston, the backup quarterback of the Saints, decided to explain himself in the locker room. And those that don't know Jameis, also a.k.a. Crab Legs, he is, crab legs because he stole those crab legs. Yeah,
I
crab
know.
man. Okay.
I know,
yeah,
I
just to explain for everybody. And Jameis is one of the most entertaining players in the NFL. When you hear him talk, he's going to be somebody that's going to be very fun to watch on TV in the future. But he offered an explanation in the locker room, and I want to get you all's take on Jameis's explanation.
Well, I apologize to DA because the play was victory, but I also explained to DA that it was a team decision, and I think when you have a team morale, and I asked the guys, I say, guys, like, what do you want to do? We know how much Jamal means to this team, and I understood from DA's perspective, so I give him that. But DA didn't condone that at all. You know, he didn't. However, we decided as a team to do it, and man, we got an interception to the 1 yard line. You know, like. So if we would have scored, would it still would have been disrespectful?
Right.
You know. So
Tyron wasn't in on it, was he?
No, Tyron was not in there.
No, I'm just kidding.
Like it was an offensive team discussion. However, when you return the ball to the 1 yard line, and you have that opportunity. We just had that opportunity, and we decided.
Do you think it's the kind of thing, though, that is forgotten fairly quickly, or you know what I mean? Like,
I think it should be forgotten, especially when the score is already 41-17. So I don't know how much worse it can get. But I got a ton of respect for Arthur Smith and the coach that he is. I think they do some incredible things. I didn't want to disrespect him. That was not my intention. My intention was to lead the team that I've been with the entire year, and we made a collective decision that we wanted to get one of our guys who they fight with blood, sweat, and tears every game in the end zone. And I'm going to feel good about that. Yeah.
So, Jameis Winston, backup quarterback with absolute franchise quarterback energy all the time. Great teammate. I think he's a great teammate. If I were Dennis Allen, I kind of agree with, the Shannon Sharps and everything. I'd probably cut his ass pretty quickly because of the decision making of a backup quarterback. But actually, let's get a reporter's thoughts here, because there was one reporter at the end who, and this happened with Dan Campbell. This is great audio that we had last week of Dan Campbell taking on a radio host who was questioning his 2-point decision making, and it led to great sounds like
no
and
thank you.
And now we have those in the arsenal. When you flip the script, a player or a coach flips the script on a reporter and the questions that they're asking, you ask them, hey, what would you do? What did you think about this? It gets kind of awkward like this.
Do we regret for scoring 41 points on them? Do you think we regret that?
Well, you do have to play these guys twice a year. That's all I'm saying.
We already played them twice.
I know, but I'm talking about in the future. Somebody's got to play these guys twice a year. That's all.
How do you feel about it? Tell me how you feel about it.
Not good.
Why don't you feel good about it?
Because you got to play these guys twice a year.
But what about it makes you not feel good about it?
The head coach tells you to kneel it out. You're asking my opinion?
Yes.
I think you should have kneeled it out.
Okay. Well,
I'm just telling you as respectfully as I can. You answer my question as respectfully as you could, and I'm telling you as respectfully as I can that I respectfully disagree with you. That's all.
You disagree with me or the entire team?
Whoever made that decision.
Okay, so you disagree with the entire team. So thank you.
No, I'm just being honest and respectful.
And that's what I'm attempting to do too. Yes. And that's what I am doing.
So,
yes. Thank you.
Should have stuck with attempting.
The Saints locker room is the most turned up place in the world. By the way, oh my God, they have like an actual DJ in there, and now we get this. We now have sounds to complement the Dan Campbell sounds.
Thank you.
Get a full.
Yes.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We can join the Saints DJ. What are you guys' thoughts, Scott? You were shaking your head very vigorously in there. What are your thoughts about the Saints' decision, about Jameis's decision ultimately?
No, I am in 100% support of Jameis and the team to get Jamal Williams that touchdown. I mean, if you remember last year in Detroit, this is a running back who posted, over 1,000 yards rushing, 17 touchdowns on the year, and then go to this year, and he's kind of had a very quiet, probably his worst season of his career at this point because, of course, it's more circumstances outside of his control. I know the team kind of asked him to play more of a fullback role than a running back role because of injury concerns and things of that nature. But when you have a team guy like Jamal Williams, who, the fans love him, his teammates love him, it only makes sense if that's your last play of the season and you're on the 1 yard line and you would have scored anyways. Cause like he had alluded to, I mean, Tyrann Mathieu ran back 74 yards on an interception to the 1 yard line. They would have scored anyways at that point. And last I checked, this is a sport. You play to win the game, no matter what happens. This whole unwritten rule and of being respectful, fuck that. These two are longtime rivals. I mean, we have the classic Anthony Mackie rise up clip that we play every once in a while. I mean, this is what rivalries are built on. Are the Falcons organization going to have a bad taste in their mouth going into next season? Absolutely. But that's what makes the sport entertaining, is for storylines like this. So having Jameis, pinning Jameis as being like a social pariah because he made that decision because he was the quarterback at the time, it's clear the team made the decision together. If anything, it just shows that Dennis Allen has just lost the locker room.
You know what?
And maybe he's the one who needs to go.
You know what he was telling Jameis?
You're disappointing your father. He raised you to be better than this. Oh! Be a better man. Hey! Be the best man that you can be. Rise up, baby!
Now, Zoo, I am somebody, and I want to know your thoughts with it, because when it comes to running up the score, I'm kind of with Washington football's legendary coach Joe Gibbs, when he famously, back during his original tenure with the team, would get shit on for running up the score on teams. He liked to do it. And his defense was, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. Right? You're going to get shit on by the fans no matter what happens. And ultimately, at the end of the day, it's the other team's job to stop me. Like, that's your job, is to stop me on defense. But from a management or coaching perspective, if a player takes the reins like that at the end, is that a Jameis problem, or is it, like Scott said, a Dennis Allen issue?
If you're already up that much and you're going to run up the score, call it as a play. It's the fact that they went into victory formation that's peeving everybody. And that part I get, because that's when you're saying, like, all right, we're calling it. We're just going to take this knee and be done. So it's like, if you're going to go into that position and then just run the ball, like, that doesn't make sense. If you're already up that much and you want to embarrass them more, like, embarrass them more by getting an actual play in, not by being a dick about it.
Hey, listen, all I will say is that when I was younger, growing up playing football, you play until the whistle blows. And they played until the final whistle blew. It's not their fault that the Falcons, they saw victory and then expect the unexpected.
Arthur Smith, don't even have to worry about it. They talk about, twice a year, they see him twice a year, and you're not going to see Arthur Smith twice a year. You don't have to worry about disrespecting Arthur Smith. He's gone. Desmond Ridder, probably going to be gone too in Atlanta. Atlanta is a big job opening in the NFL, but Zoo, I'm going to ask you, of all of these head coaching openings here, which ones are the best? Which ones are the worst, in your opinion?
I think the best would be between, I'm going to say Washington and the Chargers. I want to say the Raiders just because they have a lot of good pieces and a lot that they can work with, but it just seems like Antonio Pierce kind of won the locker room there. So that's why I'm not including them on the top part. But because the Chargers, they're the same situation as the Raiders, where it's like they have a lot of weapons. They just need someone who can utilize it the best way. So to get the right GM and get the right coach, I think that's really all that they're missing from being a productive team. For Washington, it's perfect reset. 90 mil in cap space, top 5 picks in the first 100. There's just a lot to work with. You're working from scratch. You have a potentially elite wide receiver. You have 2 great pieces on the D line, and you have a lot of usable pieces that are still on rookie contracts. I think the only people that really deserve a contract right now who are on the team are Cam Curl and Sam Cosmi. And then everything else is just basically a clean state for you to build on. So Washington is definitely the most appealing in that case if you just want to have free reign of what you do. The worst, I think, really is Carolina because, yes, you got a first overall pick quarterback, but you really don't have anything around that. Like, are you really going to sign Brian Burns? You got rid of your 2 big pieces in McCaffrey and DJ Moore. The owner is just an absolute piece of work. The fan base is kind of falling off, too. Like, the fact that you can't get even the opposing team in the stadium is pretty impressive. So whoever ends up in Carolina, like, just good luck to you there. But I think there's going to be a good line for people who want to be for the Chargers or Commanders.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta agree with you on the Chargers and Commanders at the top there. I mean, the Chargers obviously because you're already LA, you're going to have you have a franchise quarterback with Justin Herbert set there, and ownership, you can say whatever, but I don't want to be a homer, but I agree with Washington. I think is the best spot, the best landing spot for a coach or GM at the moment because of exactly what you said. All of that cap space for free agency, whatever you want to do with your current players, which honestly you can reset most of them at this rate. And that number 2 overall pick. You have your literal pick of the litter outside of Caleb Williams, unless you want to trade up for him right there at number 1. So it gives you a lot of opportunities for any coach, and the ownership is another big one that makes it very desirable. You have somebody that really wants to do things the right way and create this, an excellent sports industry here in Washington. You're actually getting talks, and can believe it, of guys like Jim Harbaugh coming up from Michigan to come run this team. So when it's between Washington and the Chargers there, but I would also put in a sneaky one for Atlanta. I think the Falcons are a really good landing spot because of how much young talent is on that team.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the big issue is quarterback there. I don't believe in Desmond Ridder, don't believe in Taylor Heineke there. You can work out something to where you can, they're in good draft position. You might be able to land a Jaden Daniels or trade up for, Drake May, even trade up for Caleb Williams. You can trade for Justin Fields if it gets to that level. But the talent that they managed to draft over the last couple of years and that Arthur Smith mismanaged, and Kyle Pitts and Drake London and Bijan Robinson, guys that show plenty of potential and promise there. And on the defensive side with Jesse Bates, AJ Terrell, who had a down year, but I still think is pretty good. There's a lot there that you can work with. And Arthur Blank is a really good owner for that team. Worst, I think we're all going to be in agreement. Carolina Panthers are the worst spot. David Tepper, we talked about it before. Is he going to be the next Dan Snyder? He's really showing Dan Snyder vibes. Like it's really eerie. The throwing a beer on a fan, that was a little over the Dan Snyder line. Because
Dan Snyder never did anything publicly. All this stuff was shady.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, throwing a beer on a fan, that's outrageous. And then with reports that, Panthers fans are like, hey, can we go get Jim Harbaugh? Tepper is somebody who does not want to give control over to a coach. He doesn't want to give a lot of organizational control. He still wants to have a hand in what's going to happen with the roster and all that. You do not want meddling, and I don't know any coach that's going to want to go and be a part of that, or a GM for that matter. But a sneaky second worst, I think, honestly, are the Tennessee Titans. I like them with Mike Vrabel. I liked Mike Vrabel to stay there and lead that team. I thought it was a down year, a rebuilding year, but you can't really blame Vrabel, I think, because of the personnel there. He's had a shot Ryan Tannehill, Will Levis, the Mayo King, and then Malik Hooker, whatever he's going to be doing, and an aging Derrick Henry. Like the whole team has really gone downhill since the A.J. Brown trade, in my opinion. So I don't think they have a good thing going with their GM. I don't know what coach is going to be able to really fix that Vrabel couldn't with, his leadership skills there. But Scott, what are your views? Who are the best options for coaching? What are the best teams? What are the worst teams and worst options at head coach?
Yeah, I think collectively you both have kind of put together my list from top to bottom, best openings to worst. Best in my mind is the Commanders. It seems like Josh Harris is pretty much willing to do whatever it takes at this point to rebrand and get that team back to prominence, especially in the NFC East. And then following that, I'm actually going to put the Falcons over at number 2. I think the Falcons have so much. I think their team is a lot better than what their record shows. I think if they actually get a solid coach in there and a competent quarterback in there, even if it's a kind of a Band-Aid, kind of a rental for a season or two, and give, whether it's Desmond Ridder or whatever rookie you end up drafting this year, give them some time to sit and learn. I think they'll be a lot better than most people will expect going in the future. But clearly the Panthers and the Titans are the worst job. You couldn't pay me enough to go coach in Carolina at this point with all their issues. And the Titans, you got to remember too, they traded damn near all their assets to the Eagles. So they don't even have anything good looking forward to the future at this point for their rebuild. So you're really scraping together some kind of team down there in Tennessee. I really like Ben Johnson going to the Chargers, especially with Justin Herbert there. I think that would be a really, really great matchup. I think me and you talked about this. We even talked about it last week online, or maybe we were just texting about it, but I would really love to see Ravens DC Mike McDonald go to the Commanders. I think that is kind of where,
he's getting interviewed.
Yep.
Right. I think that would be like the best thing for Washington at this point. I think that was the biggest thing, was the defensive side of the ball. So getting a defensive minded coach, especially a Baltimore defensive minded coach in there, I think that would be kind of the best thing to do at this point. And give Antonio Pierce his contract, please. Just give it to him.
Well, I mean, that's why none of us brought up the Raiders. I mean, he's the perfect fit there. He displayed it not only in terms of a leadership and just fitting that kind of Raiders mold, but I think he's actually a pretty damn good play call. He reminds me a lot he's like the Raiders version of Dan Campbell. Like, he's perfect for that team, and just a perfect fit for that that whole mantra. But Zoo, with the Commanders, who would you want? You've had Scott bring up Mike McDonald. Who would you want as head coach for the Washington Commanders?
So I will say that my list comes off of Rio Robinson's picks, because I follow his stuff a lot and kind of get a lot of my opinions from his perspective. But the Ben Johnson, Bobby Slowick, and the Ravens DC that we just mentioned, whose name I already forgot, seem to be like the top 3. Only one of them is a defensive-minded coach, while the other 2 are offensive. But it all comes down to the coordinators that you have coming with you after that.
That's always...
Also, Bieniemy going to Atlanta is a very interesting storyline right now too.
Yeah, that's an interesting one just in general. Bieniemy is an interesting one every year, and it's one that Commanders fans already seem to have just let go. Like we had the Bieniemy experience, and we're kind of now, I guess, feeling like Patrick Mahomes, like, we don't need him over here. You can go ahead, take him, Atlanta.
There's already some grumblings going on in the Falcons camp with who they're trying to get, who said they're willing to interview for the head coaching position, that we'll probably get into in the college side of everything.
Who's the OC for Chargers?
Kellen Moore.
I think him and Ben Johnson would actually be a great duo.
Honestly, yeah. Because, I mean, Kellen Moore was kind of the wonder kid before Ben Johnson. Everybody was
a scapegoat in Dallas.
Yeah, he was used as a scapegoat in Dallas, and then offense in LA was great at times, but Chargers fans themselves have said that the play calling was awful at different times, that he was just making really weird mistakes and the same mistakes over and over again that they don't trust really as a head coach. So maybe giving him another year in that offense and being able to keep Justin Herbert in a stable thing with a new head coach, that would be an interesting choice and an interesting pickup. But we talk about the Chargers. You're talking about all these teams that did not make the playoffs. I want to talk to you guys about any observations that you have from the regular season now that it's over. And these teams that didn't make the playoffs, what thoughts do you have just from the regular season as a whole, Zoo? Since you're giggling over here, what are some observations that you have from this regular season?
I was gonna save this one for Luis, but the Jets, man, brought all these pieces in to have this team. They were gonna be competitive. The whole AFC East was supposed to be this powerhouse going against each other. None of that came to fruition.
Well, I mean, Rodgers has somehow made them look worse. Like, I don't want to get into. We talked about Rodgers and pinpointing crazy last week. I think that's enough attention to give him. Obviously, that's what he's seeking with, the Pat McAfee show and everything that's been off of his fucking rocker today on his appearance. But somehow has made the Jets look worse. And just in general, I think I agree with this. The fact that they couldn't get any quarterback throughout the season after losing him right in that first game, I think that's a huge disappointment, almost shocking, especially when you're watching, Jose Flacco tear it up for the Cleveland Browns.
On top of that, for teams that didn't make it, it's amazing how much of the disappointment the Jaguars were. Like, they didn't have any games where they were like really standoutish. It was just like they had to fight for every win and still didn't make it. On that point, it's impressive how well the Colts and Cardinals did with their Eagles coordinators taking over as head coaches. Definitely did not expect them to be as productive and good as they were. NFC South ended up being what we expected. The Bears were a huge disappointment. I thought they were going to be fighting for the North, and they were still same old Bears. Same old Bears. Will they get a quarterback? Will they get a wide receiver in the first round? Will they trade back? Who knows? And then, of course, our sad Commanders thought we had all these new weapons and new OC, and we're going to be productive and start racking the points. No, we're just breaking records on sacks and pass attempts for some reason.
We're taking offense during the preseason when people are giving us like 4-13 projections. Oh, how the hell? No, we're going to get at least 9. No, we got 5. It's okay.
Second overall pick.
Well,
worked so well last time.
I would jump off of a couple things that you said with the NFC South. Obviously, it was awful, god awful. Scott,
hey.
except for Scott's Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Someone had to win it.
Yes.
Yeah, listen, we hear all this praise of Mike Tomlin never having a losing season. He's always over 500. Hey, we're over 500. I don't care. Where's our praise? Oh yeah, we don't celebrate mediocrity in Tampa Bay.
Somebody had the perfect Tampa Bay Buccaneers analysis, and I don't remember where it was, but they said Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I don't care. Couldn't care. They're in there. Cool. We're moving on. Like, that's the perfect. It feels like the perfect Bucs analysis because I didn't hear shit about them all year, except from Scott. But even from you, it was like it wasn't like actual any analysis. It was like, oh, they're above 4. They're above 4 games now. We thought
we're just scrapping and clawing wins together. But if anything, Baker's definitely proven himself in that 1-year deal for an extension.
I'm happy for him. I'm very happy for him. Toughest dude in the league. But that's a playoff team. We have to get into that on the Thursday show on Ricks versus Gricks. But as I'm saying about the NFC South, awful this year outside of the Bucs and Todd Bowles. Oh, darn, we're not going to get Todd Bowles. But
Jameis Winston.
NFC South over there, I have a very early bold prediction is that I think they're going to return to strength next year. I think that's a division with a lot of potential, a lot of talent that if the right coaching changes are made between Atlanta getting a good head coach, to pair with their GM Terry Fontenot, who I think is actually really good, and the New Orleans Saints improving on, their offensive coaching spots, which we've heard reports that they might be planning to offer John Gruden a spot on the offense. I don't know if it would be as a coordinator or, like an offensive consultant, something to reunite him with Derek Carr and spark Carr back up because I don't know what happened with him this season. But they make the proper changes, and all of a sudden I think you have super competitive teams that can actually make an impact in the NFC playoffs. The same with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers if they can continue to build on Baker's comeback this year and build the right way, add the right pieces, and shed whatever dead weight they need to. Panthers, don't need to worry about them. They're not going to have an impact next year. I predicted that last year. I'm not falling in that trap again. And the other observation I have, and Scott, this will probably lead into you because it's your boy, Kirk O'Bangs. I think Kirk Cousins proved this season by not being around how valuable he is, and I think he's going to be a huge game-changing piece this offseason for if he's even able to sniff free agency, because I still think the Vikings and the way they surprised everybody last year with how good they were getting into the playoffs at that first year under Kevin O'Connell. And the second season, honestly, they still could have been devastating in the playoffs if it wasn't for their Jets-level disaster at quarterback. Cousins tore his Achilles, and then you're stuck with some rotation of Jaron Hall, Nick Mullins, and Josh Dobbs, the Pastronaut coming in there. So Cousins, I think they offer him like a 2-year fat extension just to, keep him there, get the next guy in waiting ready after, with the draft or whatever. But Cousins, to me, showed how valuable he was without even needing to play.
Where are the Vikings in the pick?
11th.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, that was my biggest thing was the team that didn't get into the playoffs. I'm all eyes on the Vikings. The Vikings need to sign Kirk Cousins to, he's, 30? What is he now? 35? Something like that?
I think he's a little younger than that. I think he's 33, 34.
Yeah, but still, even with him only playing 8 games this season, he's still like in the top 20 of like quarterback stats wise, which is insane. After he went down with that Achilles, I believe the Vikings only won 3 games after he left, but a lot of those games were like 1-score games. Like they lost to the Broncos by a point, they lost to the Bears by 2 points, they lost to the Bengals by 3 points, like a touchdown to the Lions, and then the Packers, they lost by 23, but that's neither here nor there. But a lot of those close games that they lost, conceivably, I honestly believe if Kirk was under center, they would have been tipped to the other side. They would have been wins, and they would have been in the playoffs with no question. I think Kirk just kind of is that quarterback kind of slides under the radar all the time. No one really expects a lot out of him, but you look at the stat line, and he's obviously one of the main contributors at the quarterback position throughout the whole league.
I agree with that. You have any other observations from the regular season?
That the Commanders need to invest in O-line and O-line only. Just throw money at it. Just throw it there on the O-line and on the defensive line. Just get all the fat guys you can find. Everybody. I don't want to see one skill position drafted. All fat guys. Maybe a cornerback.
It's gonna look like a TLC primetime schedule.
Well, it's doing what it's doing. It's the quintessential Jay Gruden pick. He picks guards, nothing but guards.
I missed that.
On guard.
Well, look, that is great regular season talk in the NFL. That we have plenty more NFL talk to get to with Ricks versus Gricks on Thursday, but we just finished a college football season. National championship just finished up. We have potentially big name coming out of college football to the NFL. We can talk all about that, but we got to do it the right way. We have to do it with the right background, the right music, all of that with your host, Scott Ellia. So we're going to take a break, and we will be right back with the 323 College Shame Day. So, like I said, plenty of things to talk about, including the national champ.
I'm really happy for you. I'm going to let you finish.
Who the fuck is that guy?
Look at the show. I'm the captain now. Welcome to the fucking show.
Fuck Scott. That's right, college football fans. I am back, and we're taking over mid-show from Reid. Insert colonialism. It hasn't died yet. We're still taking over. one podcast at a time. That's right, folks. I am your host, Scott Ellia, and I am joined by the only hard R that I love, and it is Reid Murphy. How you doing, Reid?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great with an
Awesome.
R.
Well, this is even better because, we are branching out a little bit. It's not just a two-man show because we got Zuhair, the Curry Puff Ali. How you doing, Zoo?
This is you being serious?
This is usually the unhinged portion, and then it goes straight into being serious.
Oh, God.
But-
Unhinged is an understatement.
Well, talk about
I'm here.
unhinged.
I'm here.
Hey, I am here to teach you as much as I can. I'm sure you're not as well in depth with the college football world as I am, or even Reid. I think Reid has learned a lot this past season because
This
as
is my
unhinged,
first time watching the national championship game.
how'd you like it? It was boring, right?
It was a fun second quarter.
Yeah, I mean, for a college football playoff committee and ESPN, who died on the hill of wanting excellent quarterback play and wanting that to be their leading deciding factor into these teams going to the playoff. You have JJ McCarthy going out there posting 10 for 18 for 140 yards. Nothing says exciting more than that.
Yeah, condolences to all my family that went to Washington that were very excited for this game. Definitely not the outcome that they wanted.
No, I was excited for it too. I was really pulling for Washington. Of course, the consistent thing, and that's what the key word here, Zoo, on the show is consistency. I consistently lose all my bets, and nothing changed last night. What about you, Reid? Did you watch the game at all last night?
I watched the second half. I got into the second half of it. And yeah, I mean, it was incredible timing where, whoever the halftime people are on ESPN that aren't they're not my regular game day folks, but they're coming in there. They're saying, hey, this first drive by Washington in the second half is going to determine everything. And it started with an interception by Michael Penix. So they got me. It showed me from there. It lasted from there. I thought Washington was possibly going to make something magical happen, though.
Yeah, I felt like they definitely should have performed a little bit better. But when you have a head coach like Mr. Harbaugh himself over there, it's kind of hard to overcome. But not anything to take away from Washington. Of course, you had the Maxwell Award winner Michael Penix Jr. under center, and you had the Coach of the Year Kalen DeBoer. I think that's one name to kind of watch here in the future and see what ends up happening with him there in Washington, especially with the big jump away from the Pac-12 for next season. But boy, oh boy, folks, was this season, and Zeus said it best, it was unhinged. I mean, I don't think anything happened the way that I thought it was going to happen. But first and foremost, I do want to say a quick congratulations to all the award winners from this past season, especially Jaden Daniels, who ended up being the Heisman Memorial Trophy winner this season, the quarterback from LSU. I know me and Reid were kind of going back and forth as far as if he deserves to get it or not, especially on an LSU team that kind of dropped the ball later on in the season. Reid, were you happy that he got it?
Ultimately, I was when it came down to really just analyzing how, I mean, literally every time he touched the ball, he's picking up yardage or scoring points. You can't argue with that. It wasn't his fault altogether that their record was the way it was. He couldn't play defense. So
right.
If he could, I mean, shit, that's an even plus for the Heisman vote. But altogether, I think he wound up deserving it.
Yeah, no, he cleaned house because not only did he get the Heisman, he got the Walter Camp for the Player of the Year. He got the Davey O'Brien, which is the National Quarterback Award, and then also the Johnny Unitas, which is the Outstanding Senior Quarterback. So congrats to him. Like I said, Kalen DeBoer, head coach for Washington, he got the Coach of the Year. And then I think Michael Penix, I think is more of just a pity trophy at this point. He got the Maxwell for Outstanding Player. Thanks, but no thanks. How is Jaden Daniels supposed to get 5 different trophies but not get that one? That traditionally doesn't happen.
It's like
spread them around.
It's like a Jamal Williams pity touchdown.
Right. Well, speaking about touchdowns, you have Marvin Harrison, who got the Fred Biletnikoff for Outstanding Receiver. There's still kind of rumors and grumblings that he's going to be returning for one more season there in Ohio State with his 2 biggest goals, beating the team up north that just won the college football national championship, the Michigan Wolverines, and also going to a Big Ten championship game in Indianapolis. I don't believe he's going to come back. I think that's just a lot of hearsay at this point. Reid, I don't know if you have anything on that as it's developing.
I don't have any news on it, but I know personally I am of the belief that great, you have those college goals. I understand it. I'm sure watching Michigan win the Natty can be upsetting for him in that position when he feels so passionate about Ohio State. But honestly, I think everything he's saying is really just a leverage play when it comes to NIL talk and, seeing where his draft stock is. If you're projected as a top 5 pick or a top 3 pick, as is his case, especially at wide receiver, you need to go. You got to go. Like, you can have all the passion in the world. You can want to graduate and do it the traditional way with college, but you got plenty of chances to go back to your alma mater. Everybody at Ohio State loves you. You have a fully formed legacy there. Dude, go take your guaranteed contract with the NFL.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, the last thing he needs at this point is coming back for another season. He's out the first game with like some tragic ACL or life-threatening injury. Yeah, no, you're right. Go move on to greener pastures. Go get your bag in the NFL because you're going to get it. But we opened up the show talking a lot about the national championship game, the Michigan Wolverines over the Washington Huskies. But one thing we haven't really gotten into is kind of the path that led us to that game. Of course, we have been MIA for a couple weeks between the holiday season and sickness running rampant here in the state of Virginia. And now we have potential tsunami power outages going on right now. So this should make it interesting. So we'll go through this a little bit more expedited from here on out. But kind of diving into the New Year's 6 games for a recap, the Cotton Bowl, we saw the number 9 Missouri defeating the number 7 Ohio State Buckeyes 14-3. Talk about just a lackluster game. Going into the preseason, I had predicted Oklahoma defeating Iowa. So now that I see how the actual season shook out, that's a hilarious kind of prediction from me. Moving on to the Peach Bowl, my prediction for that one was the Wisconsin Badgers over the Clemson Tigers. Double ha, especially with Clemson kind of doing what they do best and Clemsoning down there in South Carolina. No, this game we had Ole Miss defeating Penn State 38-25. The Fiesta Bowl. Reid, if you remember in the preseason show, I had predicted Oregon over LSU. I got one team right. That was nice. Oregon over Liberty 45-6. Poor Jerry's kids couldn't get over that 6 mark.
We need to start making bets just on the opposite of what you pick.
That's what I'm thinking. I need to start fading myself, but I'm sure if I do that, I'm still going to find some way where I'm going to lose more money than I want to talk. And talk about losing. Before we get into college football playoff games, the Orange Bowl, the last New Year's 6 game we can talk about. My prediction here was Florida State over Ohio State. Another game I got right. Florida State went, but boy, did they get crushed 63-3 by the hands of the Georgia Bulldogs. And honestly, I have gone through the process. I've gone through all stages of grieving. It still is leaving a sour taste in my mouth, especially based off the fact that opt-outs and transfer portal made it damn near impossible for Florida State to even compete. If you look at that starting lineup from the ACC Championship, damn near every starter and even almost every second-string player did not even play at that point. So you sit there thinking like, okay, well, how do you combat this from happening in the future? Because that's just bad football. You even had Kirby Smart coming out in the post-game conference kind of saying how it just makes for a bad situation for both sides, for the fans. Honestly, I think one way to fix that, Reid, I don't know if you can agree with this, is why is the transfer portal even open before the national championship is over? It would make sense to have this to be at a complete standstill until after the championship game is done. I don't know if you agree or disagree, if I have thoughts on that.
No, I agree with that. Or if ultimately it's just made all of these bowl games feel kind of like the NFL's Pro Bowl, right? Where like if it's not the college football playoff, nobody seems to care. Nobody wants to take part in it. Nobody wants to risk anything. And next thing you know, you've got like some walk-on dude that you've never seen before in any of these games. The teammates have never seen him before, taking over as the starting quarterback. And look, you brought up Kirby Smart, so I actually want to play that sound for you. And
Tyler Huntley in the Pro Bowl.
and get the the coach that put 63 on your team. I want you. He agrees with you, and I like how he said it all. Very dramatic and kind of war-torn fashion.
Let me say something on that because you didn't ask me that question, and maybe I'm wrong here, and maybe this will be a bad soundbite. But people need to see what happened tonight, and they need to fix this. it needs to be fixed. It's very unfortunate that they, who has a good football team and a good football program, are in the position they're in. And everybody can say it's their fault and it's all their own problem. All right. And everybody can say that we had our guys and they didn't have their guys. I can listen to all that. But college football has got to decide what they want. And I know things are changing. And I think things are going to change next year. And you know what? There's going to still be bowl games outside of those. People got to decide what they want and what they really want to get out of it. Because it's really unfortunate for those kids on that sideline that had to play in that game that didn't have their full arsenal. And it affected the game 100%.
That man was just in a war-torn area.
People need to see what happened tonight, and they need to fix this.
Yeah, he didn't want to win just because the other team was in victory formation.
Program.
To earn that win.
Program.
No, I mean, he's 1,000% correct. You know, it's not just this game. You saw that throughout every bowl game this year. You know, he had kids not playing for this or that reason. And you kind of get into the conversation like, okay, well, how do we fix this? Do we penalize players? Do we penalize these football programs for not fielding their roster that they had set out towards the end of the season? I honestly think that's the wrong route. You know, why penalize a player looking out for himself? The way that I feel that would be best to combat this, Reid, and I want to get both your guys' thoughts on this because it's clear as day that the only games that people actually care about as far as fan bases go for college football is the college football playoff. We're moving to the expanded playoff next year. So that means there's going to be more games that are actually going to be relevant to fans. I feel all these other games have become so irrelevant and they're so meaningless. Let's make them meaningful again. The only way I feel them actually make them meaningful again, shove them to the beginning of the season for the next year. You know, all these random ass games, all these marquee matchups, you can keep the same matchups, just have it at the beginning of the season, make it actually meaningful at that point, because you're going from a game where there's nothing on the line to now putting it to your first game of the year where it's going to set the whole tone for the rest of the season.
That's actually really interesting to me. And I mean, that bowl game credit going to it, I mean, would that go towards, I mean, that's not going to go towards anybody from that past regular season though, right?
Well, not to, I guess, for starting it out, if you really want to think about it that way. I mean, that first, like, if they wanted to kind of install it this next coming season. So that way you go into the 24 season, you play the whole year, and the only bowl games that you actually play are the college football playoff games. All the other bowl games you move to the following year. Yeah, I mean, it's not going to count to any of the kids that are playing that year, but that, if anything, that's probably going to entice a lot of these juniors that are on the fence as far as coming back or not to come back the next year so they can actually play in that bowl game, get the credit for it, all the kind of the incentives tied to it at the same time, and still make another push.
Yeah, the incentive is a big point, and then it's also, like you were saying about them trying to decide whether they want to stay or not, it helps to put stuff on tape. So if you're having it at the end of the year and it's meaningless and you have that mentality, then the players who don't feel like they're going to be going as high or just playing, you know, just to figure out where they end up, they're not going to put in the effort, and that's going to hurt the people who actually have like high draft stock. So if you have an opportunity to put them more in the spotlight in these high populated games, these highly viewed games, and give them the opportunity to actually put out tape that matters with people who are actually trying to help their team win, will definitely make a huge difference.
Right. Yeah, it's just my thought is moving them to the beginning of the season. I think that would start the season a little earlier, start it sometime in August. You know, you play throughout the regular season, and then you have a nice, week and a half, 2-week break before the playoffs actually start. I think that would be best for everyone at this point.
It's a great buffer after spring football too.
Makes for a very eventful start. Makes it an actual event to start your season.
Right. Yeah, I mean, because you're seeing a lot of these teams now doing the whole scheduling process as far as making these marquee matchups. I mean, especially for Florida State. I mean, we opened the season up 2 years in a row against LSU. We started against a top 5, top 10 team. And that's what these college football fans want to see. They want to see marquee matchups early on in the season. They don't want to wait till halfway through or wait until they get into the conference play. Open it up immediately. Let's see where everyone's at, start shaking it out from the get-go, and actually make these games meaningful again. That's just where I'm at as far as how to fix the bowl season. But another issue that you kind of see coming up is the whole NIL and transfer portal, and it's making these college football programs have to be on edge with their players 24/7. You're constantly recruiting high school players. You're constantly going through the transfer portal to see all these kids that might leave, who might not leave. And this is why I feel you could see Kirby Smart, the head coach from Georgia, finally make that jump from the Georgia Bulldogs to the Atlanta Falcons. I think he recently came out stating that he was willing to have the conversation as far as being a head coach. Because at this point, the NCAA football is just a mini NFL. You're having to deal with a lot of the same stuff, but you might as well go deal with adults and have a lot more rules and regulations to free agency and, player retention.
And then we could get that sound when it comes to Jameis Winston, running in a touchdown, calling a touchdown play in victory formation.
People need to see what happened tonight, and they need to fix this.
Thank you.
Oh, but hey, it's definitely going to be something to keep an eye on. I know it's definitely the biggest talking point right now going into the offseason between the NIL. It's still really, really young as far as its utilization. So I think there's going to be a lot of things that are changing year in and year out. All right, folks, let's jump into the actual games that mattered. The college football playoff, opening up with the Rose Bowl. At the beginning of the season, I had predicted Michigan over USC, and I was right, Reid. I finally got one right because you had number 1 Michigan defeating number 4 Alabama 27-20 in overtime. J.J. McCarthy actually looked like a competent quarterback in that game, going 17 for 27, 220 yards and 3 touchdowns. And Blake Corum still running over everybody for 19 rushing attempts, 83 yards and a touchdown. Jalen Milroe in Alabama. Reid, I don't know if you saw this, or even Zoo if you saw this, but he looked like the quarterback that Bill O'Brien knows he looks like. 16 for 23, 116 yards, and 6 sacks. Before the game, Milroe came out in response to Bill O'Brien, the late offensive coordinator for the Alabama Crimson Tide, who went back to the New England Patriots, saying that Milroe should look into being a different position. Milroe came out saying, "How would you feel if I told you that you suck?" He told me a bunch of positions. He told me a bunch of positions I could have switched to, but look where I am right now. Who gets the last laugh? Bill O'Brien gets the last laugh because if anything, your performance showed that you suck and you should not be a quarterback. But I digress. And of course, you got Jason McClellan, 14 for 87 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. Moving on to the Sugar Bowl. Prediction there. I was right on another game. I had Georgia over Texas, but it was Washington over Texas. So I got another one right, 37-31. Michael Penix Jr., I still feel that he got the shaft when it comes to the Heisman Trophy because that game he did phenomenal. 29 for 38, 430 yards and 2 touchdowns. Roba Dunze, which I'm actually putting him at the number 1 wide receiver. I actually think I would take Roma Dunze over Marvin Harrison Jr. at this point into next year's draft. 6 receptions for 125 yards. Reid, did you catch him at all playing last night?
I don't know if he performed a little better in the first half, but I didn't see too much going on there in the second half from him. I know he's a very impressive receiver. I've been enjoying watching him, especially in this second half of the season as Washington got more, primetime play. But you would really take him over Marvin Harrison Jr.?
I would. Yeah, because even in the championship game, he went 5 for 87, just no touchdowns. He just couldn't find his way into the end zone. But I actually like what I see on tape more from Rome than I do with Marvin. And I think it's just a little bit of bias. I've never trusted a player's kid coming into the NFL. That goes with across all 4 major sports. I never trust the next one up when it comes to families.
He's from the Ohio State.
And they can go fuck the off. How about that? Well, moving on, Texas, Quinn Ewers, 24 for 43, 318 yardage wise in the air and 1 touchdown. Staying another year there in Texas as they're moving to the SEC next season. I feel this is a good move for Quinn. I think you have a lot of these quarterbacks coming out this year. I think he would get lost in the shuffle. Having another year on tape would be a great thing for him, especially coming off that injury. But my biggest question is, when are we going to see Baby Manning and Arch Manning there? He's staying another year. He looks like he's going to be the main second string quarterback behind Quinn Ewers. Reid, could you see him transferring along with the other kids, or do you think he's actually going to be one of these players that will be faithful and trust the process?
I would like to see him just stay and wait out another year. I mean, the little bit of action that we got to see from him this year, I think showed that he probably needs it would help to get a little more under his feet and, get some of this process. And I mean, what rush is he really in? You've got Manning blood, you've got Manning legacy and Manning money. It's not like he's hurting for anything. He can actually sit, wait, not get embarrassed with early film. I think Texas is a great program for him to lead, and it's one that will certainly boost any stock if he can lead them to the same kind of success that Quinn has gotten there. So, and Quinn's a good quarterback for him to learn from.
Right. I mean, especially you got Steve Sarkisian back down there, who is like the quarterback whisperer when it comes to college football. And now you don't have that threat of Malik Murphy lingering around because he recently transferred to Duke. So you're clearly the heir apparent. I think Quinn has gotten hurt every season he's played, spanning back to Ohio State. So I think it's only a matter of time before Quinn goes down again next season. And then you get Arch Manning in there to see what he's worth. But more to come there. But yes, folks, to cap it all off, we did have the college football playoff championship game last night. Michigan Wolverines 34 over the Washington Huskies 13. I think the biggest question coming out of this game is, now that Harbaugh has reached the mountaintop in college football, you have a lot of things kind of set in motion. Do you think there's going to be pushback from the other fan bases for an asterisk next to their championship win?
I mean,
with all their cheating allegations and scouting allegations and blah, 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 blah.
Well, the first two things that I saw trending last night as soon as the game ended was all caps cheaters. And then the next one was Connor Stallions and asking whether Connor Stallions should get a ring. Yeah, people will push for the asterisk. And we've joked saying like, I was rooting for them to win just so we could see it vacated in a couple of years. I don't think it's going to go to that point. I don't think that they will ever vacate the championship or put an asterisk next to it or anything.
Right.
Ultimately, they were still wildly impressive at any point, even past the cheating allegations and all. So I don't think any asterisk will come. And I think I'm actually happy for Jim. I was very happy watching him win and watching all of his hype, watching him hug his dad and lift him up and everything with all that. I think it was a really awesome moment for him.
Well, and especially for him, because now, as he said, he can sit at the adults table now during the holiday dinners, because his dad won a championship there in Michigan, and then his brother John won the Super Bowl. So now Jim has his championship under his belt. But I feel like his career track now can either go in one of two ways. He can either now stay in Michigan and get paid and stay there forever, now that he brought a title back to Ann Arbor, but he's been tied to a lot of these NFL openings, one of which, with this, I know being a podcast and being an audio medium, I'll just describe it. Reid is currently wearing a burgundy and gold hoodie with like a W with yellow outlining. I believe that's a Washington Commanders hoodie, if I'm not mistaken. He gave me the thumbs up. He gave me a double thumbs up, so that means I'm right, folks. He has been tied to Washington, and he's also been tied to the Bears, which I've kind of heard grumblings about. Is there any validity to this, with you guys being kind of the NFL experts to the 3-2-3?
You can go ahead, Zoo.
Start with Zoo.
No, please go ahead.
I don't know. I've heard. So Jim Harbaugh hired Don Yee to be his new agent representative. Don Yee is a very noted NFL agent. He was Tom Brady's agent for pretty much his whole career. So this happened within the last week or two. So I think he's definitely going to be entertaining NFL offers. I don't know if he'll be entertaining Washington necessarily, but Bob Myers, who is the new advisor consultant from the championship Golden State Warriors, coming in to help Josh Harris lead this coaching search, Myers has already put in a call to Don Yee about Jim Harbaugh and possible interviews. We won't hear anything, I don't think, probably for at least a week. I'm sure Jim wants to relish in the championship and all, but I mean, if my opinion on this is he just accomplished his dream. He won a championship for his alma mater, and he doesn't have a Super Bowl ring. He got very close. He got as close as you possibly can with the 49ers. And I think that's probably the next step. That's the next goal. Return to the NFL, finish what you started. At this point, he could come back to Michigan whenever he wants. He has a statue in waiting already because of this championship. And when it comes to head coaches, it never really ends the way that you want, especially now in college. I mean, even we get talks about Nick Saban on a hot seat with Alabama. We're long past those days where coaches are playing, coaching their team into their paterno ages and can pretty much die coaching a team and not worry about getting fired. I think Jim Harbaugh, you have a couple bad years get mixed in out of nowhere, and all of a sudden this praise that we're doing right now for the undefeated season goes away and you get fired from Michigan. Why ruin your legacy and all that? Just leave on top, go to the NFL and try to chase that dream, and if it doesn't work out, you can get whatever college job you want.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add to that, but as we know, he was on the list of people that were requested for an interview for the NFL. Obviously, there's a lot of vacancies going on right now that just need people who know how to win. And this could be just a good change of pace for him to just try something else and move on. Like you said, that school's always going to be a safety net for him. So if it doesn't work out, or if it's a absolute shit show, he could always bounce back and then just go back to being a winner. But I was dying when John came up to say hi to him yesterday, like while he was really locked in, because since he was just in like normal clothes for a hot second, I was like, what's Brock Purdy doing over there? So as if those pictures of them looking alike wasn't bad enough, I fully thought that Brock Purdy actually showed up to say hi to him.
Yeah, I saw that. I thought he was about to start fighting somebody as soon as he jumped on there. But yeah,
it's locked in. The second he got tapped, he's like, "What the fuck do you want?"
Were you all also thrown off by how alike Jim and Jack Harbaugh look? Like, it was almost like seeing Jack Harbaugh pop up. It was almost like Jim from the future coming to congratulate his younger self. It was.
Oh yeah, speaking about old man Instagram filters, I sent one. Zoo sent one. Reid never sent one.
An old man? Oh, well, let me get on that.
Yeah, put your shit on blast now. Oh, but speaking about old men, it's just going to be another old man in college football looking for a payday, because last I had checked, Michigan was looking into sending a deal over to Jim Harbaugh for 10 years, $125 million. That's going to be really hard to turn down. I think that would make him second to only Nick Saban for yearly salary. I think that would make it to about $11.5 million a year, if my math's correct.
It's insane how much college
we lost
money
Reid.
goes into sports.
I was looking at these old man filter pictures on Snapchat.
Oh boy, but that is it, folks. It has been a wild ride. Season 1 of College Shame Days in the books. Gonna break it down, get back to the war room, kind of figure out what the direction is going to be from here. I believe me and Reid have had discussions as far as switching this from weekly episodes to monthly episodes, because there's really not a lot that happens week to week in college football once this kind of all ends. I feel like we're probably going to end up doing a lot more of the scouting profiles for the NFL draft on this channel and talk about these players a lot more in depth. But thank you guys for joining me on this wonderful evening. I'm glad none of us lost power during this process.
Incredibly. You got to love that.
Oh. Start off, we have there, like I said, we have there Zuhair Ali. Zuhair, do you want to let the folks know where they can find you? You can do a plug on my show this time.
Oh, wow. So honored. Yeah, I do Animation Deliberation, the podcast where we take action animation and cartoons seriously, but not too seriously. We just finished our recover of Jujutsu Kaisen. We're prepping for What If. And there's just a lot of content, a lot of animated content that's coming out this year. So lots to talk about there.
Awesome. And I will say it is a great show. I have the Animation Deliberation song stuck in my head at all times. So that's always fun. And that wonderful face right there in that burgundy and gold is the one, the only, the man, the myth, the legend himself, Reid Murphy. Thank you, Reid, for everything.
Of course.
Like I've always said, you without you, it would be impossible for a middle-class white guy to have a voice on the internet.
Aw, middle class.
Yeah, lower middle class. But thank you, folks, for tuning in to the 323 Network. We appreciate your support and passion for college football and all these engaging discussions that we've had. Make sure to stay connected with us, not only on Instagram, but also Facebook at 323 College Shame Day and at 323 Reid on YouTube, the 323 Network. Don't forget to subscribe and catch our latest episodes wherever podcasts can be found. You've already found out that I listen on Spotify. Reid listens on Spotify. Zuhair, where do you listen to your podcasts on?
I'm the outcast. I listen to Apple Podcasts.
See, folks, you can find it anywhere. Everyone has their own little flavor. But until next time, have a very shameful day. I don't know.
And stay safe.
And
Look
stay
at that
safe, I guess. if you want to.
crossover. It's a crossover. We do them all.
Stay whelmed. More crossovers.
Oh my God.
Thank you.